I've seen a lot of ridiculous homeowners association drama and wild hospital stories. But nothing, absolutely nothing, prepared me for this day. It started with shouting in the waiting room. 3 sentences in and the whole building was already on edge. Karen was back. Louder. Nastier, and this time she wasn't just waving papers or pointing fingers. She was about to throw hands at the wrong person. "Who do you people think you are?" she shrieked, her voice slicing through the sterile air like glass on tile. Patients flinched. A toddler cried. Someone muttered, "Oh, God, not again." You could practically feel the tension buzzing, like static before lightning. And here's the kicker, the woman she tried to swing on. Not just any nurse. This nurse was a 3rd-degree black belt who taught self-defense classes to local EMTs. Yeah. Wrap your head around that for a second. The first clash started when Karen's demand came out of nowhere. She stormed up to the reception desk. Hair stiff with too much hairspray. Red lipstick smudged like she'd been biting her own fury. She slammed her oversized purse down with a thud. Papers and pill bottles spilled across the counter. "My doctor will see me now. Not in 20 minutes. Not in 2 hours. Now." The receptionist tried to explain, gently, that emergencies had priority. A child had been rushed in with an asthma attack. An elderly man was waiting on stitches. But Karen didn't care. Oh no. Rules weren't for her. She leaned in, jabbing a manicured finger right at the young receptionist's chest. "Do you know who I am?" I almost laughed. But the nurse standing nearby, Lena, didn't find it funny. Lena was calm, steady, the type of nurse who could handle screaming teenagers, panicked parents, even drunk patients cussing her out. But this was different. Karen's voice climbed higher, screeching like tires on pavement. "My homeowners association runs this whole neighborhood. Half the people here pay me dues. And you think I'm going to sit like some nobody?" That's when Lena stepped in. Soft voice, firm posture. "Ma'am, I need you to lower your voice. There are patients here who need rest. We'll get to you as soon as possible. But you must wait your turn." You should have seen Karen's face. Her cheeks went crimson. Her jaw clenched. She whipped around, eyes narrowing. "Don't you dare tell me what to do." And then, snap, she did the unthinkable. Karen swung. It wasn't a slap. It wasn't a shove. She actually cocked her arm back and threw a wild punch aimed right at Lena's face. Gasps erupted from the waiting room. Somebody shouted, "Hey!" A coffee cup hit the floor with a clatter. For a split second, time slowed down. But here's the thing. Lena wasn't just a nurse. She'd spent 12 years training in martial arts, specifically in situations where you needed to de-escalate but protect yourself. And Karen had just given her the excuse. In one smooth motion, so fast you almost missed it, Lena sidestepped, caught Karen's wrist midair and twisted. The sound of Karen's shriek ripped through the room as her own momentum betrayed her. Lena's knee nudged slightly forward. Pivot and slam. Karen was face down on the linoleum in under 3 seconds. The waiting room froze. Patients blinked in disbelief. The toddler stopped crying, almost stunned into silence. Even the receptionist just stood there, mouth wide open. "Ma'am," Lena said calmly, pinning Karen's wrist with professional precision. "You are assaulting medical staff. I need you to stay down until security arrives." Karen kicked her heels, sputtering. "Get off me. This is abuse. You're going to lose your job. My husband's on the homeowners association board. He'll ruin you." But her threats didn't carry the weight she thought they did. Because the doctor, yes, the very one Karen had been demanding to see, had walked into the room, and his voice was cold steel. "Karen," he said, shaking his head, "this isn't your homeowners association meeting. This is a hospital. You just committed a crime." The twist. Security wasn't the only one coming. Someone had already dialed the cops the moment Karen raised her voice. By the time Lena released her hold, red and blue lights flashed through the glass doors. And here's where the humiliation deepened. Karen, with her hair askew and makeup smeared, tried to regain her composure. She puffed up like a peacock, smoothing her blouse. "You'll all regret this. I'll sue. I'll have this place shut down." "Ma'am," the officer interrupted. "Put your hands behind your back." The cuffs clicked. The sound was sharp, final. Karen's eyes bulged. She looked around the waiting room, desperate for someone, anyone, to defend her. But you know what? Not one person moved. In fact, a man with stitches across his forehead muttered, "About damn time." That line, it broke the tension. Laughter rippled through the room. Even the receptionist, still shaking, let out a nervous chuckle. Karen, however, wasn't done flailing. She twisted toward Lena as the officers guided her out. "This isn't over. You'll pay for this." But Lena, she just exhaled, shoulders steady. "Ma'am, I was defending my doctor. That's my job. I hope someday you understand what that means." And just when we thought the scene was over, the final twist hit. One of the cops, while escorting Karen outside, leaned toward Lena. "You handled that by the book. We'll be filing charges. Don't worry. She's not walking away from this one." The irony. Karen, the self-proclaimed homeowners association queen, so used to getting her way by shouting down neighbors, threatening fines and bending rules, was now being walked out of a hospital in handcuffs for attacking the very people she expected to serve her. And the bitter ending. Karen's homeowners association board, those same people she bragged about controlling, released a public statement the next day. They distanced themselves from her behavior completely. "Her actions do not represent us or our values." Translation: she was on her own. No one bailed her out. No one defended her on social media. Instead, her mugshot spread like wildfire. Neighbors whispered. Parents shook their heads. And in a way, karma didn't just knock. It body slammed her onto that linoleum floor. Because let's be honest, she chose the wrong target. A black belt nurse defending a doctor. That's not just poetic justice. That's cinematic. And maybe that's why, when I think back to that day, I still hear the echo of the waiting room, the gasp, the slam, the laughter after the cuffs. Plays like a Netflix episode burned into memory. One of those moments you can't believe happened in real life. Thanks for listening, and hey, if you love these real-life stories where justice slams back harder than any homeowners association fine, don't forget to hit that subscribe button on my YouTube channel. She froze mid-step, clutching the newborn like it was some prized porcelain doll. "This can't be the baby's real mother," she hissed, her eyes darting with suspicion. And just like that, what should have been the most joyful moment in a young woman's life turned into a boiling storm of racism, arrogance, and karmic downfall. The fluorescent lights of the maternity ward buzzed overhead, a faint hum mixing with the soft cries of infants. The smell of antiseptic clung heavy in the air, almost choking out the sweetness of baby powder. Nurses moved briskly through the hallway, their sneakers squeaking against polished tiles. But one nurse, one Karen, stood like a barricade between a mother and her child. "Ma'am, please step back. You're mistaken," Karen snapped, her tone sharp enough to cut glass. Janelle, her hospital gown barely tied, sweat still damp at her hairline from the ordeal of birth, staggered forward, hand trembling as she reached. Her baby, her flesh and blood. "That's my son. Give him to me," she whispered, her voice hoarse, raw, desperate. But Karen clutched tighter, almost rocking the baby as if she was shielding it. Her lips curled into a smirk, her nose flared, her voice dripping with disdain. "No. This baby's white. Look at him. Look at you. Oh God." The room went silent. A silence so sharp it cut through the heartbeat monitors and the distant lullabies from other rooms. Even the baby's cries seemed to pause, hovering in the air like a warning siren. Janelle gasped, one hand pressing her chest, the other bracing the four-pole. Her knees wobbled. Are you saying I can't be his mother because of my skin? Karen didn't even blink. She squared her shoulders, holding that fragile newborn like a badge of authority. Exactly. That's when the world cracked open. A nurse from the far side dropped her clipboard, papers scattering like white birds across the floor. A doctor turned on his heel so fast his stethoscope swung around his neck. A janitor paused mid-mop, jaw hanging open, and somewhere down the hall, the loudspeaker popped with static. Then a soft chime. It was as if the whole hospital itself leaned in to watch. Oh my God! Someone whispered. Janelle's mother, who'd been trailing behind with flowers still clutched in trembling hands, suddenly stepped forward. Her voice trembled but rose in pitch, echoing down the sterile corridor. You hand my grandson back right now, or so help me. Karen cut her off, voice sharp and ugly. Security. Security. Now, this woman is trying to steal a newborn. The audacity, the venom, the sheer madness of it sent a ripple of shock through everyone watching. Janelle nearly collapsed. Her lips parted but no words came out. Just a soft, broken exhale. Was this real? Could this nightmare really be happening to her? After everything she'd been through, after the endless hours of labor, after the fear, the exhaustion, the joy of seeing her son's tiny fingers curl. The hallway doors burst open. 2 security guards strode in, their radios crackling, heavy boots, flashing badges. One of them, Officer Ramirez, adjusted his belt and asked firmly, "What's going on here?" Karen puffed up, her grip on the baby tightening. She pointed an accusing finger at Janelle. Her nails chipped but painted a harsh red. She's trying to take this infant. This isn't her child. Look at her. She's lying. The baby let out a shrill cry, so piercing it bounced off the tiled walls. Janelle clutched her chest, the sound hitting her like a knife. That's my baby. Please, someone tell her. The twist, the damn twist, came faster than anyone expected. One of the guards, Ramirez, glanced at the ID band snug around the newborn's ankle. White plastic, bold black letters, blinking under fluorescent light. Baby boy Thompson. Mother Janelle Thompson. He looked at Karen, then at Janelle, then back at Karen again. His eyebrows shot up. You've got to be kidding me. Karen faltered, but only for a second. Her arrogance kicked right back in. Those bands can be switched. People do it all the time. Do you know how much babies are trafficked? You need to listen to me. Oh, give me a break, Ramirez muttered. His partner, a tall woman with braided hair, stepped closer and leveled her gaze at Karen. Ma'am, hand over the baby. Now. Karen's knuckles went white around the blanket. Her lips trembled with fury. No, I won't let this happen. I know what I saw. She doesn't belong to. Enough. Janelle's voice cracked like thunder. Everyone jolted. She took a shaky step forward, her hospital gown fluttering, her tears gleaming like shattered glass under harsh light. That's my son. I carried him for 9 months. I endured the pain, the blood, the agony. You don't get to erase me because my skin doesn't fit your narrow little picture of motherhood. The silence after her words was deafening. Even the baby hushed, whimpering softly, as if waiting for the verdict. And then, it happened. Karen tried to step back, tried to pivot, as if she could walk right past the guards with the infant. But Ramirez moved like lightning. His hand shot out, steady but firm, gripping her wrist. That's it. Hand him over. Karen let out a shriek. High-pitched. Feral. The kind of sound that makes your spine shiver. But the other guard pried the baby from her arms, cradling him gently, safely, before placing him into Janelle's waiting embrace. The baby quieted instantly, as if he knew, as if his heart recognized his mother's. And Karen, her face twisted in rage, blotchy red patches spreading across her cheeks. She stomped her foot, actually stomped like a child throwing a tantrum. This isn't right. She's not the mother. You're all blind. Ramirez's patience snapped. He nodded to his partner. Escort her out. She's done. What? No. I'm a nurse. I work here. You can't. Not anymore. The hallway erupted. Not in chaos, but in something far more powerful. A flood of murmurs, gasps, shaking heads, and then applause. It started with one nurse at the desk, slow and steady, then another, and another, until the whole ward seemed to echo with the sound of clapping hands. Karen was dragged away, her voice shrill, echoing down the corridor until it faded into nothing. But Karma wasn't done yet, because just as the guards pushed her through the double doors, a doctor stepped out from an adjacent room, flipping through a chart. He froze, glanced up, and recognition hit his face. Wait, is that Nurse Karen? The guards nodded. The doctor exhaled sharply, rubbing his temple. Figures. HR's been sitting on complaints about her for months. Patients mistreated. Colleagues undermined. We should have acted sooner. Janelle, rocking her son gently, looked up. Her voice was a whisper, but it cut deeper than any shout. You almost lost my baby because of her hate. The doctor nodded solemnly. Not anymore. She won't hurt another mother here. And with that, Karen's career, her pride, her power, her smug grip on authority, crumbled right there on that hospital floor. But here's the kicker, the real twist. A week later, Janelle got a letter from the hospital board. Not only had Karen been fired, but she'd also been barred from working in healthcare again. And the hospital, they offered Janelle a heartfelt apology and set up a scholarship fund in her son's name, dedicated to promoting racial equality in medicine. Karen tried to sue, of course, screamed about discrimination against her, claimed she was the victim, but every lawyer she called turned her away. And when she showed up to court representing herself, the judge dismissed her case in less than 10 minutes. Janelle, she stood outside that courthouse, her baby in her arms, reporters swarming like bees, and she said something that went viral overnight. Her voice steady, clear, defiant. No one can tell me I'm not my child's mother. Not my skin. Not my hair. Not their hate. Love proves the truth. Always. The clip exploded. Millions of views. Endless comments. Strangers from across the globe rallying behind her. Karen became a symbol of ignorance. A warning of what happens when prejudice blinds common sense. And Janelle, she became a beacon, a reminder that justice might take its time. But when it arrives, it hits hard. Because sometimes karma doesn't just knock on the door. Sometimes it kicks it wide open, drags the villain into the light, and makes them watch as the world applauds the one they tried to break. And that's exactly what happened here. So, what do you think? Was the punishment enough? Or should Karen have faced more for nearly tearing a family apart? Thank you for listening, and don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel for more stories like this one. You ever have that moment when you realize your neighbor isn't just annoying, they're actually committing a federal crime? Yeah, I didn't think I'd be living in that kind of story either. But here we are, and it all started with the sharp, sour smell of liquor wafting up from under my workshop bench one humid Thursday morning. I remember standing there, hands on my hips, thinking maybe one of my paint cans had gone bad or some solvent had spilled. But no, when I crouched down and pulled open the little crawlspace door, My jaw dropped. There were boxes. Heavy, sealed cardboard boxes. And stamped across the side, in bold red letters, product of Scotland 40% ABV. Imported liquor. I froze. My first thought was, this isn't mine. My second thought, why in the world would someone hide it here? Then I spotted it, a little smear of garish pink nail polish on the edge of one of the flaps. That was Karen's trademark. Our HOA president. Always manicured. Always smug. Always ready to remind me about the bylaws even though I own my house outright and she has no legal authority over my property. I stepped back, heartbeat drumming in my ears. No, no way, I muttered, but deep down, oh, I knew. This was exactly her speed. She'd been on my case ever since I refused to pay for her voluntary landscaping fund, which was basically just her charging everyone to plant tulips in her own yard. That afternoon, she came strolling up my driveway like nothing was wrong. "Oh, hi there," she sang, peeking around my workshop door. "I heard a rumor you were working on some interesting projects back here?" Her eyes flicked quick, sharp to the bench. That's when it clicked. She'd stashed it without telling me, probably planning to come back later and grab it. But why here? Why me? I played dumb. "Just fixing a stool," I said, tapping a screwdriver against the bench. "Why? You need something?" She hesitated, then smiled too wide. No. Just making sure you're not violating any HOA guidelines. You know how it is." She turned on her heel and left, but I saw it the way her shoulders were tight, like she was carrying something heavy in her mind. That night I couldn't sleep. My gut told me something about those boxes wasn't just shady, it was dangerous. I did a little digging online, cross-checking the import label and batch number I jotted down. My stomach dropped. That specific shipment had been flagged in a customs bulletin for possible fraudulent importation, counterfeit paperwork, forged excise tax stamps. Whoever owned it could be in deep legal trouble. The next morning, I called the ATF tip line. My voice was steady calm as I gave them the details. "Yes, it's in my workshop. No, it's not mine. Yes, I know who put it there." When the agents showed up, it was like something out of a crime show. Black SUVs, windbreakers with yellow lettering, clipboards, cameras, gloves. They moved fast, boxing everything up, taking photos of the crawl space, even dusting for fingerprints. One of the agents, a tall guy with a no-nonsense voice, pulled me aside. "You did the right thing calling us. This shipment was tied to a larger fraud investigation, forged customs paperwork, illegal resale. Someone could be facing federal charges." I didn't have to say her name. The look in my eyes probably gave it away. That afternoon, the entire neighborhood knew something was up. You could feel the curiosity buzzing like static in the air. But the real fireworks didn't start until Karen came marching down my driveway, face blotchy red, voice already raised. "What in the hell did you tell them?" she snapped, pointing an acrylic-tipped finger at my chest. I leaned against my porch railing, arms crossed. "I told the truth. That's all." "You've ruined everything," she spat. "Do you have any idea how much that shipment was worth?" "Oh, I have an idea," I said, letting my voice go flat. "And so does the ATF. You want to tell me why you were hiding it under my bench?" Her eyes darted, her lips pressed tight. I don't have to explain anything to you." But the tremor in her voice told me plenty. Over the next week, things got even messier. She tried to spin the story, claimed I'd stolen her property and falsely accused her. She even threatened to sue me for defamation. But here's the problem with lying through your teeth. The paperwork will betray you. The ATF had found forged customs forms with her HOA office printer ID embedded in the metadata. They found her signature on a fake storage agreement, trying to make it look like I'd rented her space. And worst of all, they'd traced the purchase back to her nephew's so-called import business, which was already under investigation for tax fraud. By the time the formal charges dropped, she was in full panic mode. But she still tried one last move. She filed a civil lawsuit against me in county court, claiming I'd collaborated with federal agents to destroy her reputation. When I got the summons, I just laughed. "She's really doing this? After everything?" I muttered, shaking my head. But my attorney, a bulldog of a guy named Reeves, told me to relax. She's walking into a buzzsaw, he said. Once discovery starts, we'll subpoena every scrap of evidence. She won't survive it. And oh boy, did he mean it. During deposition, Karen crumbled. The moment Reeves pulled out enlarged photos of the boxes under my bench, she started stammering. When he asked her to explain the forged shipping documents, she tried to claim someone must have hacked the HOA printer. The judge didn't even hide her skepticism. Ms. Henderson, do you understand the penalty for perjury? She asked, voice icy. Karen's face went pale. The courtroom was packed on the day of the hearing. Not because it was some grand trial, no. It was because the whole HOA board had shown up to support Karen. Convinced this was her big chance to humiliate me. They were whispering in the back rows, all smug smiles, like they were already drafting the HOA newsletter headline. But the second the ATF special agent took the stand, the air in that room shifted. He laid it all out, piece by piece. The illegal shipment, the forged customs papers, the hidden boxes under my bench. He even showed the time-stamped photos of Karen herself unloading the liquor under cover of night. You could practically hear the smug draining from the HOA board's faces. One guy even sank lower in his seat, pretending to scroll his phone. When it was my turn to testify, I kept it simple. I didn't want to be involved in this. But when someone hides contraband on your property and it's tied to a federal fraud case, you don't just ignore it. You tell the truth. Karen's attorney tried to object, but the judge overruled him so fast it was like she'd been waiting for it. Then came the coup de grace. Reeves dropped a printed copy of Karen's own text messages to her nephew, bragging about how she'd found the perfect hiding spot where no one would suspect a thing. You could have heard a pin drop. Karen's hands shook as she read it, her lips moving silently like she was trying to rewrite the words in her head. The judge didn't waste time. The plaintiff's lawsuit is dismissed with prejudice, she said, each word like a hammer on steel. And given the evidence, I strongly advise Ms. Henderson to focus her attention on her ongoing criminal matters. Karen just sat there, frozen. Not even her usual high-pitched rebuttal, nothing. By the time we left the courthouse, the HOA board was pretending they'd always had concerns about Karen. A few even tried to be friendly with me, but I wasn't buying it. People love to change sides when the tide turns. 2 weeks later, the news broke that Karen had accepted a plea deal to avoid prison time. She'd forfeit over $60,000 in assets and was banned from holding any HOA office for life. When the moving truck pulled up to her house, half the neighborhood just happened to be outside watching. As the last of her furniture disappeared into the truck, she caught my eye. No glares, no insults, just a hollow, bitter stare. That's when it hit me. This wasn't just about liquor or laws. This was about someone who thought she could control everyone until the law controlled her. And me? I went back to my workshop, cleaned out the crawl space and locked it tight. No more surprises. If you think that lawsuit was wild, wait until you hear the next HOA Meltdown. Subscribe to my YouTube channel so you don't miss it. They called the cops on me over a jet ski.
Yeah, a jet ski.
Not a weapon. Not a stolen car. A bright yellow Sea-Doo that's been in my family since 2009. And the kicker? They had no idea that one tiny line on an old land deed would send those officers walking right back to their patrol cars without saying another word. Let me back up a sec. It was a Saturday morning, hot enough to fry an egg on my driveway, and I just rolled my jet ski out of the garage for a long overdue cleanup. Speakers were playing some good old-fashioned Lynyrd Skynyrd. My dog Cooper was chasing his own tail, and life at that moment felt perfect. Until I heard it. That slow, deliberate shuffle of flip-flops on pavement, followed by the unmistakable ahem of someone who wanted to ruin my day. "Is that yours?" the voice asked, thin and sharp like a paper cut. I turned to see her, Karen Rothman, self-proclaimed queen of Willow Pines, HOA sun visor, clipboard, lips pursed so tight it looked like she hadn't smiled since 1983. "Yes, ma'am, it is," I said, trying to be polite. "This is a residential area," she snapped, motioning toward my driveway like she'd caught me running an illegal casino on it. "Watercraft are not permitted on visible display per Article 7, Section 14 of the HOA Covenants." Now, I knew what she was referring to. But here's the thing, me house? It's not actually part of the HOA, never was. It was built 3 years before the neighborhood got incorporated under Karen's little empire. And yeah, I've read that land deed line at least 100 times right under Parcel 17. It says, excluded from Willow Pine's covenant restrictions per boundary line established 1998. So I smiled and said, actually, I think there's been a little mix-up. But she cut me off with that clipboard, literally raised it like a sword and declared, I'm filing a formal violation. Expect a fine in the mail. I let out a soft chuckle. You can't fine me. Her eyes narrowed. Excuse me? I walked into my garage and came back holding a laminated copy of the deed. Yes, laminated, because I've been through this dance before with Karen's minions. I pointed to the exclusion clause. Karen stared at it like I just handed her a Sudoku puzzle written in Latin. She didn't say another word, just spun on her heel and stormed off down the sidewalk. I figured that was the end of it. Oh, I was wrong. 3 hours later, 2 sheriff's deputies rolled up. Lights on, sirens mercifully off. Karen was waiting for them at the end of her driveway, arms crossed like she was posing for her own episode of Law and Order, Neighborhood Division. I watched from my porch, sipping iced tea like I was at a front row seat to my own drama series. Sir, one of the deputies called out. We received a complaint regarding an unauthorized vehicle obstructing neighborhood standards. Can we speak with you? Absolutely, I said, walking down with the same laminated deed in hand. I gave them the rundown, how my house was built before the HOA, how I'm not subject to their bylaws, and how Karen's complaint had no legal ground. Deputy 2 took the deed, read it, turned to Deputy 1 and said, he's right. This property's outside the covenant zone. He's not under HOA jurisdiction. Karen heard that loud and clear from her front yard, and man, you should have seen her face. She looked like someone had unplugged her life support. Eyes wide, mouth twitching, one hand gripping that clipboard like it was the last piece of her crumbling kingdom. And then get this, she actually yelled, but it's unsightly. It's an eyesore. The children can see it. Deputy 1 gave her a look I'll never forget. Ma'am, that's not a criminal matter. We're not here to enforce personal taste. Now that line deserves to be embroidered on a pillow. Karen tried to argue, tried to throw a fit right there on the lawn, but the officers walked back to their cruiser, muttering something about wasting department resources. I stood there in the sun, hand on my jet ski, grinning like a man who just won a game he didn't even know he was playing. But you want to know the best part? That night, I lit up the driveway with LED string lights, red, white, and blue, draped an American flag over the garage, and parked the jet ski right in the center like it was the 4th of July in Daytona Beach. Karen hasn't said a word since. Makes you wonder how many people get bullied into silence by fake rules and louder voices? Well, not this guy. Not on my land. The next morning, I woke up to the sound of hammering. Not construction work. Not a neighbor doing some casual weekend repairs. No, this was the erratic, furious kind of hammering that said someone was having a mental breakdown and trying to build their way through it. I walked out in my robe, coffee in hand, and sure enough, Karen was out front, pounding a community standards matter sign into her yard, like she was summoning HOA demons from the underworld. She saw me watching and shouted across the street, some of us still care about appearances. I raised my mug and gave her a 2-finger salute. Cheers to that. Honestly, I thought we were done. I thought the cops showing up, reading the deed, and walking off would have sent the message loud and clear. But you know, people like Karen, they don't stop when they're wrong. They double down. By Tuesday, she'd rallied 3 other neighbors to write a petition demanding the removal of unauthorized marine equipment. They slipped it under my door like it was a ransom note.
No signatures.
No official letterhead. Just bold Times New Roman and a whole lot of misplaced rage. I laughed so hard I choked on my sandwich. But you know what really got me? That night, I heard something by the lake. A weird, scraping noise. I grabbed my flashlight and walked down the path that runs behind our row of homes, and there, half buried in the cattails, was a pile of lawn furniture. My lawn furniture. The set that had been on my back patio earlier that day. It didn't take a genius to connect the dots. Karen had decided that if she couldn't control my front yard, she'd mess with my back. So I did what any sane man with a jet ski and a flair for petty revenge would do. I spent all Wednesday afternoon creating what I now lovingly refer to as Jet Ski Island. Built a floating dock extension out of old pallets, mounted solar-powered spotlights to it, and parked the Sea-Doo right in the center like it was the crown jewel of the lake. Hell, I even added a little speaker that loops Ride of the Valkyries at low volume during sunrise. Legal? Yep.
HOA approved?
100%. Petty? Absolutely. And when Karen saw it the next morning, I swear I heard her scream through the double-pane windows. I thought that'd be the end of her crusade. But oh no, Karen had one more wild card to play. The next week, I got a letter in the mail. Not from the HOA, but from the city planning office. Apparently, someone had filed a zoning violation complaint, accusing me of constructing an unauthorized floating structure with potential environmental impact. Now that made my jaw tighten. I made an appointment, drove down to the office with my paperwork in hand, and sat through the longest, most ridiculous meeting of my life. Turns out, Karen had filed the complaint under her maiden name and claimed to be part of a fictitious lakefront preservation society. I showed the clerk my land deed again, including the parcel boundary, lake usage rights, and the attached letter from the previous owner affirming my floating dock was within zoning compliance from 2007. The clerk actually laughed and said, "She's tried this before. You're good." On my way out, I noticed a man in the lobby, waiting for his own appointment. He gave me a curious look. "You the jet ski guy?" he asked. I nodded warily. He chuckled. "She tried to get me fined last year for painting my shed too bright. Claimed it gave her migraines." Sounds about right. "Next time she comes at you with legal threats, let me know," he said. "I'm your neighbor, and an attorney." Boom. That was the twist. The cavalry I didn't know I needed. He handed me his card and said, "She's all bark and fake bylaws. You ever want to take this to the real courts, I'm in." I walked out of that building 10 feet taller. And when I got home, I fired up the Sea-Doo just loud enough to let Karen know the jet ski wasn't going anywhere. Sometimes it only takes one land deed line to bring the whole HOA house of cards tumbling down. But if you've got a neighbor like Karen, you might need to bring the whole dock, spotlight, and Wagner playlist too. Ever had to fight back with paperwork and pettiness? Hit like, leave a comment, and definitely subscribe because next week, I'm installing a laser light show on Jet Ski Island. Let's see what that clause says.